finally, we have it confirmed that Matthieu Blazy is the creative director of Chanel. Of course, a lot of people, I've even seen in the chat right now that a lot of you thought that Eddie Simon would eventually get the job. I mean, when you think of Eddie Simon and you think of the fact that his last Celine collection, in a way, kind of looked like a Chanel audition. When you look at the clothing, the style of the clothing, this sort of Parisian chic, classic clothing, it very much looked like he was auditioning for the job. But now we have it confirmed. Matthieu Blazy is the creative director. Of course, this collection on the screen right now is Eddie Simon's last Celine collection, which we thought was him saying he wants the job at Chanel, essentially. How is everyone doing? This was shocking, but not surprising. I guess at a point, it became the case that he was the front runner. So yeah, it shouldn't be that surprising. Just that it's confirmed. Kind of what we already knew to be true has now been confirmed. Of course, I did make a preview video when Matthieu Blazy was linked with the Chanel job. I did say, you know, I understand that Chanel is a bigger brand. Chanel is quite literally the second biggest brand in luxury fashion behind Louis Vuitton. So in terms of resources, in terms of money, he's probably going to get paid more. In terms of fame, in terms of eyeballs, I understand why on a personal level, this job is so good for Matthieu to be doing. However, it just makes me, you know, wonder, what if it doesn't work? And that's what I'm really scared about. What if it doesn't work? Because I think he had an amazing run at Bottega, from him working under Daniel Lee to, you know, him actually becoming the creative director of Bottega Veneta itself. And he sells. He knows how to make clothing that sells. I mean, we've looked at the Kering financials and we've seen that even at a time when all of Kering's brand was struggling, the only one that seemed like a bright spark was Bottega Veneta. Now, of course, that's because, you know, he's a good designer and his products were desirable. But I also think it's the scale of Bottega. Bottega is not as big as Gucci, for example. So they haven't exhausted a consumer base to the level of a Saint Laurent or a Gucci, right? So I think those points are very, very important. But I do think that he definitely has been a bright spark. He's shown that he can sell. He's shown that he's very in touch with his customer base and he knows how to design clothing that's very desirable for his customer base. Sag says, can you explain who he is for a noob like me? Okay, so Matthieu Blazy is, of course, a well-known fashion designer in fashion. He's worked at many different brands all the way back when he was interning for John Galliano and Balenciaga when Nicolas Gasquier was there. He's had so many jobs in fashion. Off the top of my head, if I'm going to run through them very quickly, he's worked at Raf Simons, under Raf Simons, so that's Raf Simons' eponymous label. Then he went to Maison Margiela. Then he went to Celine working under Phoebe Philo. Then he rejoined Raf Simons, that time under Calvin Klein, which was a very famous time for him. And then he eventually went to Bottega Veneta, where he was working under Daniel Lee, who was the creative director. And then he eventually became the creative director of Bottega Veneta. So that's kind of a run through quickly of what he's done and the houses that he's worked at. Very, very experienced, very, very well known, at least to fashion people and in the fashion industry. He's a highly, highly respected designer. I did see a lot of discourse about kind of similar to what I was saying online about what if it doesn't work. And I don't want to be a pessimist. However, it is a question you have to ask, considering that Bottega is doing so well. Like, Bottega has done so well. And, you know, heading into the territory of the unknown, I don't know how, you know, that could work, especially considering if you think of the kind of conversations we have around Chanel right now, everyone is talking about the quality is going down. They're charging these high prices, but the quality isn't the same. The hardware the quality is going down. The bags, the leather is not as good. And how is he going to overcome all those issues, considering that he doesn't really have any control over those things? Those are more executive decisions that he has to kind of live with and sort of, you know, see how he can overcome those. Crank says Chanel is a perfume company now. Does it even matter who does the clothes? Yes, it does. I understand, and I understand where this viewpoint comes from, that, you know, a lot of brands, especially Chanel, I mean, Chanel has one of the best-selling fragrances of all time in Chanel No. 5. But that being said, you need a good enough dream to sell the fragrances. If the dream isn't good enough, then people are just going to stop buying the fragrances. So you need the clothes, you know, to work, and kind of what people are saying with the perfume ads also, but you actually need to sell a dream. I used to think that some brands were so big that they didn't even need marketing until I started working with really massive brands and realizing that there's some seasons they might not get their marketing strategy right. And you can see the sales going down, even though they spent tens of millions on marketing. Of course, an LVMH brand would spend billions, in fact, like LVMH as a whole probably spends billions on marketing a year. So these things aren't as, easy. It's not as easy to sell perfume as it seems. Some perfumes tank, and if the dream is not believable enough, people stop buying your perfumes and they will start buying the fragrances of, the luxury brand that's selling the right dream. So it's actually extremely important. It's more important than you think. Lamfari says Chanel's perfume's quality has really gone down as well. The new reformulation is so bad. For what fragrance are you talking about specifically? Or what line? Are you talking about the Les Exclusives line? Who owns Chanel? The Wertheimers. The Wertheimers. The people that have owned Chanel all the way since they pushed Coco Chanel herself out of the brand, slowly but surely. That's a whole story for another day when we talk about fashion history. But yeah, I really don't know how modern Chanel perfumes smell. Feel like only older women in the 90s wore Chanel perfumes. So I think of them as old, but I don't know women's perfumes as well as men's. No, I don't think that the L'Exclusives line for Chanel has that kind of old money vibe. I don't think it's as bad. It doesn't, like, Chanel L'Exclusives fragrances don't smell like Chanel No. 5, which to me does give an old lady vibe, to be fair. Chanel No. 5, definitely, when I smell it, it smells like that. Is Chanel finally going to do menswear? I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, Chanel does do menswear sometimes. Not like full collections, but they do menswear here and there. They do custom looks for celebrities on the red carpet. I don't know if that's what they want to, though. Because you have to consider, Chanel is the second biggest brand in the whole of luxury fashion, and they don't even do menswear, really. So, do they need to? Probably not. Probably not. Going back to the Matthieu Blazy story, there was a quote from Bruno Pavlovsky, who is Chanel's fashion president. He said, Matthieu became an obvious choice for the brand as we came to understand his talent, his personality, his groundedness, and his culture. The interview process was truly inspiring as we grew to know him, his vision for creation, his modernity, his respect for and commitment to products, and the women who surrounded and inspire him. Now, something that I really found interesting, to continue the quotes from Bruno, he said, we didn't choose Matthieu to just do Chanel. We chose him so he could push the boundaries of what Chanel is for the future. He will bring his modernity, his way of working. Chanel is ready to let itself be transported. Now, I really wonder what Bruno Pavlovsky meant by, he's going to be pushing the boundaries at Chanel. What I do think is that Chanel has been stale for a few years. I mean, no tea, no shade, but I've not been the biggest fan of Virginie Viard's collections. I don't think she was able to dream the way that Karl Lagerfeld created a dream. And so I think that they do need, even though they've been doing well financially, even when I was reading the interview with Bruno, it seems like there's a clear understanding that they need to start making Chanel interesting again. So it sounds like they're going to give Matthieu Blazy a lot of creative freedom to do his playful thing and to be a lot more playful, the same way that he's been playful at Bottega Veneta. And that will be very, very good to see because, otherwise it's just going to be really stale and really boring. So I'm glad that, they're giving Blazy a lot of creative freedom in that sense. Her collections were so confusing. Like, what exactly am I supposed to be feeling when looking at them? Yeah, and then some collections just made absolutely no sense. Like that Manchester collection where they had this horrible red sweater because they're like, well, it's inspired by Manchester United. And then they had that horrible light blue sweater with Chanel logos all over it. Like, this is inspired by Manchester City because we are immersing ourselves in the culture of Manchester in England. The whole thing made absolutely no sense. So it's good to see a designer that, can dream a bit more, that has a lot more interesting things to say through clothing. But yeah, it's such an interesting conversation because I think that Chanel's revenues have been surging. I mean, they had reported revenues of, I think, $19.7 billion in 2023, which was up more than 75% over 5 years. But of course, because the prices have been surging, like I said earlier, that's a massive, massive issue. Everyone's complaining about it, considering the quality is down the toilet. And it's good to see how exactly he's going to to deal with that. The last collection of Chanel, the Chanel team was worse. Oh my god. All I know is that Chanel, their collections have not been interesting at all in the recent times. That's what I can tell you. Like, I don't think there's actually been one collection from Chanel in the past 3 years that has been critically acclaimed in that sense. Let me even say past 5 years. We can push it to that. Let's see. People have been asking for a woman at a major brand. So they have that now. Let's see what happens. Yeah, because I saw that when Matthieu Blazy was announced as the creative director, the first, thing that came up, which is extremely valid, is the fact that we have less and less female creative directors, considering that these brands are targeting a female audience. And the main customer base for a lot of these brands, especially Chanel, it's women. So it's kind of strange that you don't have women designing here. However, luckily we did get Louise Trotter at Bottega Veneta. So even though, Blazy went to Chanel, we did get Louise Trotter going to Bottega. So it would be great to see what she does. Let's see, Marc Jacobs would have been really amazing at that role. So would Eddie. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. A lot of people actually thought Eddie Slimane was going to go to Chanel. I did see Marc Jacobs' name be thrown into the hat in the earlier days of us speculating who would replace Virginie Viard. But I think either way, they can't go wrong with any of those. Eddie Slimane, Matthieu Blazy, Marc Jacobs, to be honest. Hello, Dami.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Good evening.
How are you doing? And what do you think about this big news with Matthieu Blazy being, announced as the creative director of Chanel?
So, what I feel about the Matthieu Blazy, it was a surprise. I'm still in a little bit of surprise right now.
Really? Even though, because there was a point, I guess, over the past, let's say, 3-4 weeks where it was all but confirmed. Like everyone was saying, basically, he's been confirmed. It's just, it hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah, like I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I got a message and somebody was asking me about this very specific topic about what I feel will happen. And it wasn't until like days afterwards, I was like, oh, wait, just based on the person messaging me that they're telling me that Matthieu Blazy is going to be the CT. So I was just kind of like, okay, cool. But, low-key, I still wanted Eddie, but, it's not really like, who am I?
Oh, so you wanted Eddie Slimane.
Yeah. I thought he was like throwing his hand in the ring with that last collection. Honestly.
Yeah, that's what everyone has been saying. His last collection at Celine did look like a Chanel audition.
Literally, like that's what I think. That's what I don't know whether I've done a critique or review or commentary on it, but I remember saying something to that effect, or maybe you said something to that effect. However, the main thing is that Matthieu Blazy is valued. He creates refined like garments, and he creates refined collections as well. He also does very artful collections, so like there's nothing against his design acumen at all. I just understand that what people want versus what they will get is sometimes different, and there's not necessarily saying on a major front that he will not do well. And what was interesting is his actual title at Chanel also.
Right.
So he's artistic director of fashion. I believe that's the whole title.
He has
fashion collections, yes.
He has a lot of responsibility because they said that he's obviously overseeing 6 runway shows per year, as well as red carpet projects and commercial collections that include everything from the handbags to hair clips, capsules for ski and sand. And he also has a lot of responsibilities in terms of the brand's marketing campaigns. So he has a lot of work to do.
So partially what that told me is just on a corporate side that he asked for an amount that was a lot. So then he was also given a lot of responsibility based on it. And his value in the marketplace, because you're recently talking about it with Louise Trotter and women in fashion, but we'll get to that. But the main thing about Matthieu Blazy is that he's not as big of a name as Eddie and some of these other designers, right?
Oh yeah, he's not.
So he's new for all intents and purposes, although he's like well decorated, but he's new to some of these people. So in quotes, he could be a, bet, like he could be a gamble. And that is what I'm seeing. So all of his responsibilities now is kind of exclaiming the fact that he has to create a world. So it's not even a question of whether he will or he won't. It's that he has to.
Right.
So that's like, it's no longer a should type of thing. It's like this is his thing. He wants to do this. He asked for this. He asked for all of this responsibility, and now he's
Yeah.
getting it.
Yeah. But it's good to see though, because it's always great. Of course, like we said, we've had the conversation about women in fashion and we're going to have some more of it. But I do think it's great to see someone who is so seasoned in fashion. He has been everywhere. Margiela, Bottega, Raf Simons, Calvin Klein, Celine. It's like his resume is insane. There's very few people in fashion with a resume the level of Matthieu Blazy. So it's good to see someone of that ilk be hired at basically one of the biggest jobs in fashion. The two biggest jobs in fashion is Louis Vuitton or Chanel. Those are the two big ones. So it's good to see someone of that level be hired there.
Yeah, like someone that is well decorated, that is technically like starting their career in a weird way. Like, and I understand the CD or AD position now. Like, it's becoming a new thing, which is interesting. Like, I think the other person that has that's an AD is Ib Kamara that we know, I
Right.
should say. But someone that is so well decorated is having value across the board, and this is expressed, in fact, to the public, right?
Yeah.
Like with Eddie, I don't believe that it was necessarily named, but you kind of saw it. You saw his hand everywhere, and then like the news slowly comes out that he gets a piece of beauty or he gets a piece of like the perfumery and all of these other things, right? But this is detailing like with effect what he should be doing.
Yeah. This
Like
is
so
interesting.
they're telling us
Sorry.
we should do that. Yeah.
On the screen, this point that Pavlovsky said to Womenswear Daily that he hopes Blazy will be there for the next 10 or 15 years. I mean, that's kind of not similar because, of course, Karl Lagerfeld was there for a lifetime. I think Karl Lagerfeld was at Chanel for 36 years specifically. But I think that's what works with Chanel, a designer that's there for a really long time and builds a world and just keeps building on it. I saw a comment earlier where I think it was you, woman, you said, are you not concerned that he jumped ship like every 2 years? So the thing is, it's not the same because his first proper creative director role was at Bottega. So normally as a designer, the reason why you're going from brand to brand is you're, going into higher roles as you move from brand to brand. So you just keep doing that until you finally get the creative director role, and then you stay in that role until either you get fired or you find a bigger role. So in the case of Bottega, he was doing so well there. All of us here watching the stream know that if this Chanel job didn't come, he would have been at Bottega for many, many more years. The only reason he's going to Chanel is because it's a bigger job and it's better for his career. He makes more money, more resources, all those things. So he doesn't come across like someone that will just jump ship. It's more to do with him trying to benefit his career long term.
What is the value of Blazy to the public? I hope I'm saying his name right, by the way. I really do. What is his value to the public?
What do
Like,
you mean by value to the
in
public?
terms of like CDs either become celebrities or fade to the background. And sometimes we have CDs that become major celebrities, right? So Virgil Abloh would be an instance of this. But
Right.
then not everybody knows the name Virginie Vigiard, right? So it's like that's like the juxtaposition. And then there's Karl Lagerfeld, of course, right? So it's like, does he want to become one of the premier designers in the whole entire world? Is that like his ambition, considering he's, taking on this undertaking?
Maybe, but I don't think Matthieu Blazy will ever be famous in that sense because I don't think he has the personality for it in terms of the creative directors or let's say designers that become really famous, like their fame transcends fashion. They normally have these larger than life personalities. You think of Karl Lagerfeld and the stories of him flying people out in private jets, the extravagant parties, or John Galliano, like that, you almost have to have this larger than life personality. Matthieu Blazy gives me the vibe of someone who loves the craft, loves what he does from a fashion design standpoint, but is more I'm going to chill in the studio type of guy rather than, I'm going to be out and about partying and blasting techno every day and, all this kind of taking pictures with supermodels every night. I don't think he doesn't give me that personality.
Yeah, and that's why I would ask, like, who is he to the public? Like, what's the crack with him? Do people love engaging with him? Do people love engaging with his work? at Bottega, aside from the fashion public and commentary saying that
Mhm.
his Bottega work is brilliant and beautiful.
I honestly think that Chanel is such a big brand that it's only a matter of time before the sheer size of Chanel will make him famous, or the sheer marketing machine of Chanel, because he's going to be dressing people at the red carpet. That's a chance for his name to be spoken about. Celebrities are probably going to, this is my Chanel with Blazy. This is Blazy. Like, I just feel like his names are going to be mentioned a lot. It might even get to the point where rappers start rapping about him. You might see a West Side Gun making an album, like some crazy album talking about Matthieu Blazy. So I honestly think that the sheer marketing machine of Chanel is so big and so powerful that it's only a matter of time before he gets pushed into the forefront, even if he doesn't have, that larger than life personality.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that a designer needs a larger than life personality or even a brand for that matter. However, his ability to be such a go-getter and then emerge in this amazing position tells me something about his personality, right? So even when you don't hear much from him, and I'm still trying to find the article, but considering the Chanel news just popped. Like, I can't find the most recent article that was written about him. But like, even in that, it's like his presence in fashion is a couple of articles long. Like in terms of the information that we had about him, and I really enjoyed when he did that article, or should I say that interview. I really enjoyed learning about his life, right? And
Right.
his, family life and how he likes to live, like the places that he's in and all of those things. And like that's the same thing with Alessandro Michele. But that aside, I wonder how he's gonna take to this instance. And I would love to know what the chat has to say. But for me personally, when it comes to designers of this ilk or magnitude, it tells me that they want to achieve something greater than what has previously been seen from them.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's the reason why you would leave your cushy job at Bottega that's working to go into the world of the unknown and one of the biggest jobs in fashion in Chanel, right? So he must be ambitious. He must have this ambition of trying to reach the heights of fashion and, stuff like that. And there's very few designers that would say no to Chanel unless you're just scared of being in the forefront and your work and the maximum critique. Something that I did say in my initial video that I thought was interesting to bring up is I think at Bottega, because he's such a perfect fit for Bottega, it's almost to the sense where every collection just works and every collection is good and every collection was just like, oh my god, he's so good, he's amazing. Which is true, I think it's warranted. But at Chanel, the level of scrutiny he will be under because of how big the brand is compared to Bottega Veneta will be huge. And I'm not sure if he's ready for that. Once again, his personality, he gives, I don't know him personally, but he gives like an introverted personality. And I don't know how he would handle insane levels of criticism if people, let's say one collection, they don't like it and stuff like that. And that's kind of what you open yourself to when you go to a brand the size of Chanel.
Yeah, one thing about me though, I do love a designer that doesn't feel the need to tweet, doesn't feel the need to be on socials, gets at it and goes after their work, right? On
Yeah.
the other hand, I do understand like designers do have major egos, like most artists, right? Like it's just kind of part of the gig. Like you want your vision to be at the forefront of whatever you're doing, and you don't really want to work under anybody. And then knowing that he's a millennial, right? Even though it's like the upper end of millennial, but knowing that he's a millennial and knowing that he is valuing himself this highly and in terms of what he wants to achieve at Chanel, it's like, what does he do when somebody doesn't like it, like you said? And that would be the interesting thing for me is like, if he had 2 or 3 collections in a row that didn't hit, like, what would people say? Like, it's nice that I forgot how to say his name. The major person
Who?
at Chanel
What,
begins with,
Bruno Pavlovsky?
yeah, Pavlovsky. Lord have
Yeah.
mercy. It's nice to say that you want him there for 10 to 15 years. It's
Yeah, I
nice.
mean, there's people
But
working in tandem at Chanel. It's a whole machine. Of course, they have like Lena Nair, who's the CEO. You have Bruno, who's more like fashion director, right? So Bruno is more working closely with Matthieu Blazy, but then obviously Lena Nair is like overseeing it.
yeah, and so the main point was if after 2 or 3 seasons that they don't hit, let's say 3 years down the line, it's just like a little rut that he's having, how does he react to that? Like those are the
I think that's more of a mental conversation. I think that in terms of backing, considering that in Women's Wear Daily, Bruno said that, they want him to be at the brand for, 10 to 15 years. So clearly the backing is there. They truly believe in him. So I don't think 1 or 2 bad seasons is really going to affect the bottom line. I also don't think it's going to affect, them being like, oh my God, like, let's go with a different designer. I don't think that's ever going to happen. It would have to take a lot of, bad designs in a row, and then Chanel would have to start losing money, which would take a long time to happen because, like we were alluding to earlier, Chanel makes most of its money through its beauty division. So even if there's a bad clothing collection, it's not really going to affect their bottom line. The only time it would is when the dream of Chanel has been decimated so much to the point where people start buying less fragrances. That's when they're going to have big issues. But that would take a long time to even happen. You wouldn't even see that even if you had 3 bad collections.
And I think that's the same thing that's happening with Pharrell LV. It's so super massive that even if one of his collections were bad, possibly, they're not going to necessarily feel it. Like you're going to see tiny blips, but it's not going to move the needle in a way where like Chanel becomes third most important brand of our generation, right? So yeah, I do. And to be honest, as I'm saying all of this, like, because it's just fun conversation, but I do think he's actually going to do well at Chanel. Like, I actually think that he has the design acumen first. Like, all of what we're saying is cool, but like, I can tell
has
that
the resume.
He's an artistic guy that has a vision and he likes to proliferate that. And he's being allowed to have his own world take on Chanel. And he's a young guy as well, for that matter. So
40 years old.
Yeah, that's young. So that means he took over the position at 37, which means he's been grafting. He's been grafting his whole career. So there's everything, every confidence I have that he's gonna be grafting at Chanel also. Like he just has that mentality based on his like work ethic prior to this.
Yeah. I saw someone earlier in the chat saying that they wanted Sarah Burton to go there. But the thing is, Sarah Burton can't go there because Sarah Burton is taken. She's at Givenchy. So yeah, that kind of cancelled that out. I think she'll do really great at Givenchy, by the way. And follow in the crazy footsteps of Lee, considering she just came from McQueen. But yeah, that should be interesting to see how that develops over the years.
Yeah, like I want to see, like, just based on everything that we spoke about, and then like maybe to get onto the Louis Trotter topic, I just want to see how Matteu's value increases in fashion, because now he's becoming one of those names. Like, can you see how much scrutiny Pharrell is under, and how much scrutiny like Virgil was under prior to that, and all of these places that these things happen. And even like the early days of when McKellen joined at Gucci, like no one really likes to talk about it because like, well, using hindsight now, but people didn't really enjoy that first collection. It was like really mixed. I remember it. Yeah,
they slammed. I have a video, right? Let me see if I can find it so I can put it on the screen so people can see it.
All right, let me finish what I say. So while you find that, so yeah, like the amount of scrutiny and all of these things is like I just want to see, I want to enjoy this as it is in the lifespan that it is. Like, to be fair, I'm becoming more and more of a fan of his, like interpersonally, rather than anything else. So yeah, I'm enjoying it from the value perspective of knowing he's a great artistic guy. Do you have the video?
Right. Yeah, it's this video, how Alessandro Michele transformed Gucci. And in this video, I shared a clip from style.com. And if you watch the video, I think you can even find it on YouTube, of his debut collection. They were like, this looks like, what you would thrift in a store. This is not luxury. They were slamming him.
Bro, okay.
They ate alive.
I don't want to say any names, but considering you did, when I remember the show studio video back in those days.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. So it was fun. But like I said, it was mixed, isn't it? And yeah, like there's gonna be so much scrutiny, big spotlight, massive egos, competing with the best in the world. Now Matteu's on the stage of like Bew Anderson, who's like becoming one of the most popular designers. But Jacques Mus, he's probably one of the bigger designers in the world. Pharrell, just based on his position. And yeah, so them four are kind of
Yeah.
just competing with each other at this point on who can build the best world, right? So yeah.
Yeah, but the way they ate Alessandro alive just to then buy the same pieces is hilarious. Like the same people that were eating Alessandro Michele up literally bought those, you know, the Princetown loafers, the
Yes.
backless ones.
Yeah,
Bro,
man.
I saw every fashion editor wearing those,
Bro, I remember
especially at Vogue, and I was like, aren't these the same people that killed the collection where these shoes literally featured? Like,
bro, this is
that's
because
crazy.
I remember I don't know when it was, but I remember you were like, he's the accessory. He was like the accessories.
Yeah, he was
director
an
at-
accessories designer, yeah,
like-
at Gucci,
like-
yeah.
So I was like, I remember
From Tom
at
Ford's
least-
days.
Yeah, at least that would say that, yo, you're gonna find something great about this collection. And I remember it was you that said that, yeah, he was working with Tom Ford from Tom Ford days, but
Yeah.
he's been grinding through the company and he's been mastering his craft and he has a vision, right? And now everybody loves him, which is amazing, right? But this is the thing, the way that people treat CDs at this level, or ADs now, we're getting now both titles, is that, oh, you can be seen in a light in the beginning, but yo, 3-4 years down the line, people are probably gonna like laud these Bottega collections, and you're gonna have people with like wardrobes of like, you know, archive Bottega from every single season he's done
Right.
in like 10 to 15 years. So yeah.
Right. And it's interesting because I saw someone earlier say that wasn't Jacques Mus supposed to get this job, and I think Jacques Mus's name was definitely one of those names that was thrown into the endless hat of names linked with Chanel. But I don't know, like, I'm not even trying to be mean, but when I think of Jacques Mus, I don't think of luxury. So Jacques Mus being at Chanel, I just don't associate that with luxury. Yes, he's French, but when I think of Jacques Mus, I really don't think of it. When I think of Matthieu Blazy, I think of luxury. When I think of Eddie Salmon, I think of luxury. When I think of, I'm trying to think of the other names that were tied, but a lot of the other names, I think of luxury, whereas Jacques Mus, I literally don't think of luxury at all. Wait, someone's asking, is Chanel price point way higher than Bottega? It depends. It depends because Bottega has some ready-to-wear pieces that are quite literally, like, I remember there was a Bottega skirt that was 26,000. Now, Chanel ready-to-wear isn't ever that expensive, like Bottega ready-to-wear, but Chanel does haute couture, so then it becomes like, what price point are we talking about? What line? I would say that on average, Bottega ready-to-wear is probably more expensive than Chanel, but overall, Chanel's way more expensive, especially haute couture. Like, that stuff is not affordable. Like 150,000 for a dress. That's some crazy stuff. But ready to wear, I'd say I see more expensive pieces from Bottega than Chanel, ready to wear wise. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind the scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.